Welcome to the Mental Breakdown. I'm Dr. Berney Wilkinson.
And I'm Dr. Richard Marshall.
And today's podcast is all about the 10 things that we need to make sure that we're teaching our children and teenagers. So, enjoy.
Good morning. This rainy Friday.
It is
first Friday of September.
It is a rainy Friday with a hurricane, or is it a hurricane or a tropical storm?
Hurricane.
It is a hurricane.
Is it Hermine?
Something. I thought it was going to be Hermione.
Hermione.
I thought it was.
Right.
It would have been very, very nice.
It is a hurricane. It's the first hurricane of the season.
Yes.
And the first hurricane in 11 years.
Which is amazing.
Amazing.
Which is amazing.
Right.
And here in Florida, we think about that all the time because every year, of course, they tell us about how horrible of a hurricane season it's going to be. But yet, this is our first one in a long time. Right.
That's because we all bought generators the last time.
That's right.
So we didn't need them for 11 years. Now they're not good anymore.
Once you prepare.
Right.
No,
but there is coastal flooding.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of problems on the Gulf Coast, on the west coast of Florida.
Yeah.
And so we'll be thinking about those folks today as they try to deal with that flooding that's occurring over there.
Yeah, definitely.
But here it's just winds and rain.
Yes.
And just a soggy Friday.
Soggy Friday.
Okay.
But there's something very special about the podcast today.
There is. Tell us.
Number 100.
This is podcast number 100. Bernie came to me maybe 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Said, we need to do podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what's a podcast? Got literate, the electronic literacy level that I had. I said, well, tell me about podcasts. And he certainly did. And so now we're up to podcast 100.
Podcast 100. So this is exciting. We are centurions. We could name it that way, right?
That's a little scary for me.
Right? Not by age.
I'm hurdling towards centenary status.
That's right. So it's very exciting, and we wanted to. We didn't post a podcast this past Thursday because we wanted to make sure that number 100 was one that we got to do together, and that we kind of touched on an important topic, and not that any of the other topics that we cover aren't important, but we wanted to make sure that we did a big topic.
Yeah, this is one that I feel pretty passionate about.
Yeah.
I feel passionately about all of them, but I feel especially passionate about this one because of some things that have been happening the past couple of months. Also, I should say, I really appreciate that you waited until I got back to do number 100 because I've been gone for a while and having some surgery and fixing up replacement parts, So I had to
that centurion, here he comes again.
Here he comes again. So I had to get some replacement parts. So Bernie was good enough to wait until I got back and we could do one together that we feel pretty strongly about the topic
I think so.
We're going to be discussing today. So we're excited about it. We're excited about having you with us. So enjoy.
Yes. So it's a really important topic because working primarily with children and adolescents and, of course, their parents, we find ourselves often talking to parents about the things that they need to do to, raise not only emotionally healthy children, like we talked about in our books, but also to raise emotionally healthy adults. Maybe our next book. Stay tuned for that.
That's right. We do need to get serious about that one.
Right. So to get ready for those things and to get ready for our children to make that transition from childhood to adulthood, there are a number of skills that children need to learn that, by and large, for whatever reason, many children aren't learning. We teach at the college level, and there are a lot of college students that we work with, that we teach, that don't have some of these fundamental critical skills that are really necessary to be successful adults and ongoing students.
And that's where this first became apparent to us, was working with, when you talk about, college-age students, we're talking about students in their late teens, early 20s.
Right.
And we see individuals who are now in their mid-20s, who are maybe college graduates, who are still struggling with many of these same issues. So we've talked about this many times, is what's missing. There's some ingredient here that the students themselves or the young adults are telling us there's something missing. There's something that I'm not understanding about how the world works or what I'm supposed to be doing or what my place is in the world. And so we've noticed this over time. We've given it considerable thought. We've tried to collect our thoughts, and I think we've done that with these 10 things. So that's the journey we want to take this morning, because I think to answer many of the questions that we're being asked, we have to begin with children. We have to begin doing this with our children and make sure we sustain it through the teenage years, through those important teenage years.
Absolutely, and each of these 10 things could be their own podcast.
Exactly.
So we're gonna go through them, relatively briefly, but each of these could be a podcast in and of themselves. Some of them are things that we've talked about before, but they could certainly be podcasts in and of themselves, because the topics and the subject matter is so dense and so critical, especially, like, for example, the very first one that we were going to talk about, number 1, is empathy. That's a topic for a couple of podcasts probably. But, we when we talk to children and adolescents and we look at what their typical life patterns are, many of them they go to school during the day, but then they spend a lot of time in the evening. And this is just an example of how children are having a difficult time learning empathy. So they go to school during the day and they come home and they're playing their video games, and they have a lot of what we'll call virtual relationships. Friends that live in China or friends that live in other countries. And while we've talked before about the positive aspects of video games, things that are good from video games, one of the things that is problematic is that they don't have any face-to-face time with other people their age, and this inhibits the development of empathy.
Correct. Yeah. Because although feeling bad when another person feels bad can occur as early as age 2 or 3. We see it in young children. The mother cries, and so the child cries.
Right.
But real understanding of and seeing something from another person's point of view really doesn't appear until about age 8.
Right.
And it's not going to develop without providing children with experiences where it can develop.
Right.
If you take a child, if you remove a child from social situations, from social settings, they're going to stop learning empathy. They're going to stop learning compassion. They're going to stop learning these things. So what we're suggesting in this podcast is, if we want our children and teenagers to become adults who are compassionate, empathetic, understanding, who have initiative, if we want them to have these qualities, we're going to have to give them opportunities from early childhood on, to give them opportunities where they can develop these traits. Right. Left to their own, they may not develop. There was a time when empathy developed normally, when all of these things developed normally. But the way the world we're living in today doesn't always automatically provide those things. And I think as parents, we need to think about, okay, what can I do as a parent to provide my children with the opportunities they need to develop these traits? Right.
Yeah, so we have to, and we can't teach empathy, or really any of these other things that we're going to talk about. We can't teach them like we do the multiplication tables. You can't just say, hey, go in your room and practice empathy. That's just not going to work.
Exactly.
So we have to give them those direct social experiences so that they can develop those skills and understand a little bit better how to relate some of those nonverbal skills or nonverbal communication tools that other kids use. They can interpret them, read them, and understand them to develop that empathy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So empathy is number 1.
And so with that, there's a column coming out.
Yes.
It will be out on Sunday, right?
Right, on the Ledger.
Empathy. And we talk about that.
Right.
Given how much time kids spend, children spend about 7.5 hours a day on electronic devices.
Right.
By the way, adults spend about 11 hours a day on
which is incredible.
Which to me was unbelievable when I saw that. The latest data are 11 hours a day spent on screen, on screen time. So if children are living in this virtual world, as you call it, they're not interacting directly with people. All the time we talk about, the children in the back seat and they're texting each other rather than they're in the same place and they're still texting each other. Or people are out having dinner and each is on a cell phone.
Right.
And so when you take away that direct interaction, that used to happen automatically. Now we've taken that away, and we live in this virtual world. We live in a world of electronic devices. So now we have to create circumstances that provide situations for our children. Like you say, it's not like drilling the multiplication tables, but it is creating circumstances. And that's what we have to do. So that's empathy. That's one of 10, right?
Right.
Okay.
And it leads us nicely into number 2, which is compassion.
Right.
You know, the while empathy is understanding and feeling what other people feel, you know, understanding how somebody else feels about it, compassion is sort of the caring about that.
Right.
Being thoughtful and concerned about how other people are feeling.
That's right.
And a lot of teens, a lot of kids are not developing that skill. You know, they spend so much time on video games and with these, again, virtual relationships that unless somebody says, hey, what you just said really made me mad,
Right.
they really have no idea. And even if somebody says something that makes you really mad in that virtual relationship, all you have to do is click the little headphone and you're gone, and you don't have to deal with it. And so they're not developing the compassion that's really necessary to, again, foster and build and grow relationships.
And if they're sitting in a bedroom or a living room or a den and isolated, you know, we sit in these little insulated capsules playing video games with people from all over the world.
Right.
That's wonderful, but you're in this little capsule in your house. You're not out looking at the rest of the world to see what other people are going through.
Right.
Okay. And so we want our children to develop compassion for other people, but if they're never around other people, they can't learn it. They can't learn it sitting in a bedroom.
Right.
They can't learn it sitting in a living room.
Right.
You know, and it's not that there's anything wrong with the electronic devices. It's that we have to do these other things. And it's, again, parents' obligation to provide those experiences.
Right. And we can teach that through modeling and through direct training by saying, you know, hey, what you just said really upset me.
Right.
You know, why would you say that? Were you trying to hurt my feelings? Were you trying to make me upset? Were you trying to, you know, get this result or response from me? And we teach it in very concrete ways when we use words like that. But that's going to be the way that we're going to have to teach, because they're not getting those opportunities. Because, you know, even if kids go to playgrounds, as you said a moment ago, even if they go to playgrounds or, you know, those kinds of environments, they're still on their electronic devices, you know, sitting next to the person that they're texting. Mm-hmm. So we really need to make sure that we encourage those times. Sometimes we have to take away. Many times we need to take away the electronic devices so that we sort of force them in that situation. That's one of the reasons I love sports. Right. Because when they're on the soccer field, you can't have your cell phone. And so if you want somebody on the other side of the field to do something, you're going to have to communicate that to him.
Communicate directly. Right.
So that compassion and that empathy, you know, kind of go hand in hand, and it's going to come from those social interactions that we're going to have to provide for the kids.
That's right. And we have plenty of times when we're out, we see people panhandling, people with signs at street corners, okay? And normally that's so often we just criticize those people, or we make fun of them, or we call them names, or we see homeless people. Right. You know, you're walking around the city, you see homeless people. Those are opportunities to talk to our children about what must that person's life be like to be in that situation. It's not just that they're lazy, or that we have to use those. And then what can we do to help people less fortunate than we are, whether it's at holiday time or all the time. Those are wonderful teaching opportunities. And
what's great about what you just said is that all that is a conversation.
That's right.
All you have to do is talk to your kid to teach
that.
Those things. Yeah.
But if we're only engaged in a limited number of activities, we don't take these opportunities.
Exactly. Exactly. So, empathy, compassion. The third one is something we've talked about before, which is we have to teach our kids how to manage disappointment, how to handle loss. We so often live in this world where everyone gets a trophy. Everyone is rewarded for whether you came in first place or last place. You get the same size trophy.
Participation trophy.
Everything is the same, and we really need to move away from that. Not that we are against reinforcing kids, not that we are against rewarding kids for good work and good effort and things like that. But when we treat the worst team the same as we treat the best team, this imbalance doesn't teach children that the motivation and the drive to improve and to continue. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff again in just a little bit, but it doesn't teach it. So we need to teach them that, you know, their disappointment is okay. this is how we handle loss. This is what happens when we don't do as well as we thought that we would, or that we hoped that we would, and this is how you manage it.
Right. Yeah. The whole concept of participation trophies or participation recognition. It's okay if you want to do that, but then you still have to have some way of separating those who excel from those who are still learning. And
Right.
We're not saying failing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You're still emerging. You have emerging skills, or you're falling short. Okay. There is more to learn, and we all agree about this. There's more to learn from falling short or
Right.
failing than there is from success. If I'm succeeding, I'm happy about that.
Right.
But I'm not learning anything new.
Right.
If I'm getting all A's in school, somebody should extend the curriculum a little bit for me, so that I have to work a little harder to
Right.
learn something new. Apparently, this is all coming too easy for me.
Right.
I want to be stretched a little bit,
Right.
And if a kid is getting all A's, I think it's time to increase and maybe raise the bar a little bit.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier this morning, that we have college students who expect an A,
Right.
but they don't always put forth the effort and do the work necessary for making an A. And so when they make a B, or Lord forbid, a C, they're in the dean's office, they're complaining, they're wanting the course audited and all kinds of things. And
a C no longer means adequate. A C means failure.
Right. A C is average.
Right.
A C is
should
average.
be you're doing the work that I asked you to do.
Right.
It doesn't mean that anymore. It's a sign of failure.
Right.
It's an indication that you're falling short. So.
And there's a lot of things to blame for that.
What is number 3 again?
3 is managing loss and disappointment.
Yeah, learning how to, I began to say, and I lost my train. It's not that we're against the participation trophies, but the important lesson here is that children have to learn how to handle disappointment.
Right.
Winners and losers have to learn how to win graciously and lose graciously.
Right.
You have to learn how to handle your disappointments, because there are going to be disappointments.
Right.
Somebody's always going to have more toys. Somebody's always going to have a bigger boat. Somebody's always going to have more places to live. We have to learn how to manage disappointments.
Right.
And if we don't get, and it's up to us as parents, as adults, to put children in situations where they fall short and they learn how to handle disappointment by falling short. It does children no good to always experience success.
Right.
I mean, that's a disservice to children.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that the whole idea of participation trophies came from a good place.
Right.
Because, the idea is when you have young kids who are maybe resistant or reluctant to want to participate because it's just so hot to play outside, play soccer on Saturday late mornings or something. We give all of those kids trophies so that, oh, look, let's go get another trophy.
Right.
But by the time kids reach 7, 8, maybe even 6, that should end.
Right.
But we continue that process, and I'm sure that part of it is economics, because these clubs and these groups, they want kids to come back. Right. So because the more they come back, the more revenue that they get. But regardless, the issue is that we really need to stop this practice of just rewarding everybody the same way, despite their performance and overall outcome. Right. So, and again, that one flows right into number 4, which is we got to teach our children delayed gratification. So many children, adolescents, even adults, want it right now.
I want it right now.
They can't wait. I was working with a kid within the last couple of days who he needs to be playing his electronic device so much that he has a very difficult time putting it down just for 2 minutes to brush his teeth.
Right.
We have to teach our kids how to delay gratification a little bit. That video game is going to be there in a couple of minutes when you finish brushing your teeth. And if it's not, it's okay, because when you get home from school, it'll be there still.
And the other thing I think we should teach our children is that it's okay to wait. Like, you're ready for school? Well, we're not all ready yet. But I'm ready now. I want to go right. No, right. You have to learn how to wait. Well, I want to eat right now.
Right.
No, you have to wait for dinner.
Right.
And we have to again, as parents, it's our obligation to put children in that situation where they learn how to wait, that eventually you're going to get it, and you're going to survive, and you're not going to starve to death, despite all your protestation. You're not going to die of starvation, but you're going to have to wait. What's happening now is that children, I want to eat right now. they snack a little bit and then they miss dinner.
Right.
They miss the most important part of the meal. And
Right.
so, no, let your children experience these things so that they learn delayed gratification. They learn that they can survive.
Right.
That's what we have to teach them.
Right.
You're going to survive this.
Right. Absolutely.
We all did as children.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And that
my mother said, no, it's not ready yet. So, okay, I have to wait.
now get out of here.
That's what brooms are for.
That's right. And wooden spoons.
And wooden spoons.
I never saw them use it in a pot or anything. That was only one thing for that.
Nobody
wooden spoon.
swept the floor. That broom was for us.
But so delayed gratification, and go to YouTube and look at the just type in marshmallow test. That's a great example
the marshmallow test.
of delayed gratification.
Right.
But it's such a critical skill because that we have to have as adults, and that begins in childhood. That begins in early childhood. You should be teaching this that just hold just a little bit of time. It'll be all right.
And if we're always giving our kids everything they want all the time, we deny them, which is such an injustice.
Right.
We deny our children the opportunity to learn delayed gratification. Right. They're not going to develop it automatically.
Right.
It's up to us as parents to put them in situations where they learn delayed gratification.
Right. And part of that's going to come from the parents understanding how much delay there should be.
Right. Right.
You can't tell a 5-year-old, you know what, if you're good all year long, we're going to go to, I'll get you a milkshake. Well, that's a long time to have to be good, and he's going to lose track. But
it's good for a 5-year-old to learn what it feels like to wait for 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Exactly.
That's how we learn to deal with time.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, when my mom told I know about how long I have to wait for dinner.
Right.
Those are the important things that we want our children to develop.
Exactly. Now, the next thing, number 5, we're halfway. We're almost halfway through. Is we need to teach our children how to be self-sufficient. Yeah. Many children, teenagers, and even young adults, once again, are so dependent on others. They are so dependent on their parents to accomplish everything for them. Their parents to arrange everything, to talk to the school, to talk to teachers, to manage all that for them. We need to teach our children how to be self-sufficient. Here's the tools you need to take care of the process yourself.
You are your own responsibility.
Right.
It's not up to anybody else to entertain you.
Right.
It's your job to take care of yourself.
Right.
That cannot begin too early.
Right.
And the longer you wait, the more difficult it is to get that message across to children. If you wait until they're teenagers, it may be too late.
Exactly. If you're bored, you need to find something to do.
It's not my obligation to entertain you.
Right. Parents are too often becoming the entertainment.
Yeah, for some reason,
the event coordinator.
I'm bored. Frightens parents.
Yeah.
It needn't frighten you.
Right.
Again, it's one of those teaching opportunities. When children are bored, it's their obligation to find a way to entertain themselves.
You're getting frustrated.
I think of my mother. If I would have, when I said I'm bored, she would yawn and she'd, well, it's not my problem, and walk out of the room.
Right.
And the message was very clear. She's not going to do anything about my boredom. That's my obligation to fix. That's my problem to fix, not hers.
Yeah.
Why should we can't allow our children to hand us their problems.
Right.
We have to hand them back gently. We have to hand them back and teach them how to deal. Give them the opportunity to learn how to deal with it.
Right.
If we keep taking their problems, they're never going to learn how to solve them on their own.
Exactly. And I don't remember ever feeling like I was bored as a kid. I think that there were things that we did. We go outside, we do different things, but we kept busy. And today, again, if the power goes out,
what are you going to do?
Most kids today have absolutely no idea what they're going to do.
What would you do if all the electronic devices are down?
Yeah.
Like we have this.
If the Wi-Fi goes out,
people are losing their electricity.
Yeah.
Okay. If you lose we lost our electricity for a week back in 2004 or 5, whenever the hurricanes came through. What would you do if you had no electricity? What would a child do?
Yeah.
Because if the whole world revolves around electronic devices, that child is going to be bored. They're not going to know what to do.
Yeah. So we have to, as you said, provide them the opportunities to learn how to entertain themselves and how to be self-sufficient. Let your child, if your child is in middle school and he's having a problem with a teacher, let him or her deal with the teacher. Let him or her talk to the teacher. Now, you may need to give them maybe a little bit of a script, maybe an outline of what to talk to the teacher about, but
And
let them do it.
And what tone of voice to use.
Right.
Right.
And you know, the strategies that we use as adults, you know, maybe send them an email first.
Right. Right.
Compose the email. I'll help you edit it. Send them the email first, and then work from there.
Request a meeting. Say,
Right.
can I talk to you sometime today?
Exactly.
You know, that introduces this note. You know,
Right.
that teaches children how to deal with things on their own, rather than bringing it home and having you solve the problem.
Right.
And we don't do them any good. We don't do them any good by solving their problems for them, whether it's boredom or teachers or playmates.
Right. And again, this one leads right very nicely into number 6, which is we need to teach our children how to take the initiative. Again, so often we arrange, we schedule, and we plan everything for our kids on such a tight schedule that they have no opportunity to initiate anything for themselves. You know, there are so many kids that are just idle until the parents say, okay, it's time to do this.
You are absolutely right. You know, we hear a lot about overscheduled children. There's a book called The Hurried Child.
Right.
And this notion of we are overscheduling our children. The problem isn't so much that we're overscheduling them. The problem is that we are scheduling them, and we're not giving them the opportunity to learn how to schedule themselves or how to fill in that time.
Right.
You know, you have a kid who in school, then you go pick them up and you get something to eat, and then you go to this lesson and you do this class, then you do homework. The whole day is structured.
Right.
They don't ever have a chance to learn how to take control of their own schedule.
Yeah.
You know, because we fill up their schedule.
Right.
They don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah. So we have to give them this opportunity to initiate themselves, and try things, and when they want to, allow some of that to happen.
Right.
And that that's just such an important skill, because we want them to develop that. We want them to learn that and take that with them into adulthood. Now, the next of our 10 is self-regulation. You know, kids many times have such a hard time regulating their emotions, regulating their reactions to things. They just, you know, impulsively respond to something, and they don't have the awareness, and it kind of goes back to some of that social awareness stuff that we've been talking about. They don't really recognize how their behaviors or their responses to something may come across to other people, may impact other people. And so we got to teach them how to regulate their behaviors and emotions.
And this is something that we should put on our list of things to do pretty early in a child's life. Self-regulation should be completed by about age 7 or 8. By 2nd or 3rd grade. Certainly by the end of 3rd grade, a child should be able to regulate his or her emotions. They should be able to rein them in.
Right.
The temper tantrums should be over by then. They should be able to deal with anger. They should be able to deal with happiness. But they should be able to regulate their own emotions by about age 7 or 8. But again, it doesn't happen automatically.
Right.
We have to put them in. We have to help them deal with it. So they have to be in those situations. And again, if all a child knows is winning, then they've never had the chance to experience, to learn how to self-regulate.
Right.
If they're allowed to just express whatever emotions they want, we're not giving them a chance to learn how to self-regulate.
Right.
So please keep that in mind, especially in the first 8 years, is that one of the most important jobs we have as a parent is to help our children develop the capacity to regulate their own emotions. The longer it goes, if it goes beyond 3rd grade, you might be dealing with a much more serious problem. If children are still having violent temper tantrums after the age of 7 or 8, you may want to get some professional advice, because it's probably a larger problem, and you may want to do some other kinds of interventions.
Absolutely. All right, so that's our
6?
first 7. No, that's 7.
That's 7?
So number 8.
Ooh.
And again, there are some underlying themes here from the other things that we've talked about, but we need to teach children the value of quiet. We're always plugged in. We're always doing something. Again, always have to be entertained. There's been some really nice research that's come out recently that says, you know, taking 5 or 10 minutes a day just to sit in silence, maybe some soft, gentle music or something meditation-like music or something like that playing in the background is okay. But generally, just quiet, just allowing things to be silent and experiencing that and teaching yourself how to tolerate that is so important.
One of the things you're going to see more and more articles in popular press, parents' magazines, and gentlemen's magazines, and women's magazines about the value of quiet time. We are all plugged in way too much. Okay,
yeah.
And we are afraid to let go of these devices.
Right.
We take them to the table, we take them to dinner, we take them to bed. You need quiet time, and the time to learn this is during childhood and adolescence. Kids, young children, and teenagers need to learn the value of unplugging and just being quiet.
Right.
Just still for a while.
Right.
And as I say, you're going to read more and more about adults needing to do that. But I think the time to begin is when they're children.
And there's 2 times of the day that's best for this.
Right.
First thing in the morning.
Right.
Is actually a great time when you first get up, just to kind of settle, to get your day off on a good foot. And of course, the last thing of the day, just before you start going to lay down to go to bed, it's a great time for some quiet to settle yourself.
And one of the things you're going to hear from your children is, well, I use my smartphone as a radio in the morning. You know, I play to. I'll buy you a radio. I'll put a radio wherever you are in the morning. You don't need your phone.
Right.
You can use this, or you can use some other device.
Because they're using their phone for more than just music. That's why it's
because messages are coming in.
Right.
Messages come in 24 hours a day.
Right.
Okay, on these phones. So no, you have to insist. Mealtime should be a quiet time. Okay, bedtime should be a quiet time. There are many times during the day when, yes, it's okay. Separate yourself from the phone. You're going to survive.
Right.
But you need the quiet time. And again, we have to teach that to our kids.
Right. Right.
You have to teach nutrition. You have to teach hygiene. You have to teach quiet time.
Yes. Yes. Now, number 9.
We're closing in on.
We are. Perseverance.
Perseverance and persistence. Right.
When we, again, some of the things we've already talked about, but when we are confronted with an obstacle, we have to learn how to push through. We have to learn how to keep going.
Right.
Because otherwise, we give up. We quit. And how many times do kids quit? You know, as a coach, I have players who start off the season and, you know, within a couple of weeks, things aren't maybe going the way that they want it to go. They're not a starting player. And instead of working or coming to me and saying, hey, coach, what can I do to get better? They quit and they leave the team. And we need to teach them perseverance. Paul Tuff, right? He talked to us about grit. Grit is perseverance.
Right.
Grit is pushing through and finding as close to success as you can despite the obstacles that are confronting you.
Right. Yeah, we often hear this phrase about, well, anything, if it's worthwhile, it takes time. You know, it takes effort, it takes energy. And it does, and we're right. And yet, many times our children, if they don't have immediate success, they just throw up their hands and say, I can't do this, it's too hard, you know, it's too this, it's too hot, it's too good. No, you have to persevere to get good at anything. And we want our children to get good at things. We don't know what they're going to be good at when they're young children, but we have to give them these opportunities to become good. But to become good, they have to persevere.
Right.
And I like when parents tell their children, okay, it's okay to sign up for soccer, but you have to complete the season. Right. You can't go for 3 or 4 weeks and then do something else and then do something else.
Right.
And so this is a value taught very early to children that you have to stay with it, whether it's piano lessons or soccer or whatever activity it happens to be. You have to complete some minimum amount of time.
Right.
Because that's the only way they're going to learn that, oh, okay, if I do this long enough, I'll get good at it.
And as we tie some of these things together and move on to number 10, because what I want to do, let's talk about number 10, and then we'll kind of show you how a lot of these things tie together. Number 10 is we need to teach our kids that mistakes are okay.
Yes.
It's okay to fail. It's okay to miss the mark. It's okay to not be perfect.
It's okay to strike out in baseball.
Right.
It's okay.
The best players do.
The best players only hit the ball 1 out of 4 times.
Right.
My kids are tennis players, and I see parents furious when their children double fault. There's
Right.
a reason for a double fall, because
Yeah.
professional tennis players double fall.
When I played tennis, my instructor, my first original tennis instructor, he was also the coach for Jimmy Connors. He was one of Jimmy
Okay.
Connors' first coaches. And one of the things he taught me, and I think it's such a valuable lesson, he said the most wasted shot in tennis is the first serve. The very first thing you do, that's the most wasted shot, because most players put everything into that one shot.
True. Mm-hmm.
And that's the shot that we're most likely to miss.
Oh.
And so we waste it because we just put everything into it instead of being strategic about it. We just waste it, and
That's true.
it's all or nothing.
You hit it as hard as you can, and probably fault.
Right.
Probably get
Right, and that's why some of the best tennis players in the world, just tennis talk. That's why some of the best players in the world, their best stroke is actually their second serve.
Well, that's right. That's what they work.
If they have a really good second serve, that's the player that you know is going to succeed.
Right. But we just finished the Olympics, and we saw those athletes who are the best in the world make mistakes.
Right, absolutely.
Fall off balance beams, fall short, trip over hurdles, and miss volleyballs and things. So even the best in the world make mistakes. And yet we're so hard on our children when they make mistakes, whether it's failing a test. Failing a test is a mistake.
Yeah.
Teach your children how to deal with that mistake.
Yeah.
Whether it's athletics or music or trying out for plays, let your children... How about this? Spilling a drink.
Yeah.
That's a mistake.
Yeah.
These are teaching opportunities. Let children make... I spill things.
Yeah. You do.
I'm glad nobody's punishing me every time I drop something on the floor.
You better watch out. And it's great that you mentioned like failing a test. My son performed really poorly on a test the other day. He said that he had no idea that the test was coming. It was a surprise test, and he did really poorly on it. And he texted me. But when he texted me, he said, "I really did bad on this test." And the next sentence was, "I'm going to have to figure out a new strategy for studying."
See?
What do I have to say?
Right.
I say,
but that didn't happen accidentally.
Right.
I've been working.
Right. Right. We've been working all along to teach him that these are the things.
He was a very young kid.
Exactly. But that's what we want our kids to do. We want them to say, "This was the mistake I made. This is how I'm going to work to resolve that issue."
But to learn that lesson, they have to first make a mistake.
They have to make the mistake.
Let them make a mistake, and don't denigrate, don't criticize, don't start name calling, don't start punishing. The mistake gives you the opportunity to teach this valuable lesson.
Right. So trying to tie a lot of this stuff together, if we allow our children to initiate and to sort of push their limits, maybe that should have been number 11, is we need to teach our kids to venture outside of their comfort zone sometimes, to try new things, to try things that they've never done before. That could have been number 11.
Well, try to fail. Push yourself so far that you fail. Do it on purpose.
Right. So when we put our children in situations where they have the opportunity to initiate something that they've never done before, where they have to delay gratification, where they have to put themselves out there in an uncomfortable, challenging situations that do push their limits, and they fail, and they have to manage that disappointment and that loss, and then they have to understand that they have to persevere. They have to push themselves to keep going. And that mistakes are okay, and that we're going to learn from those mistakes. And all of these little pieces, when we put them together, we can see how those skills, when implemented over time and mastered to where when we become adults, that's an innovator. Right. That's a discoverer. That's a person who's going to take charge of their life and be self-sufficient and be those things to take care of themselves and to take care of others.
Yep. And, the sports analogies they're just so easy to use and so applicable to life. We talk about tennis or soccer.
Right.
Your son is a goalie.
Right.
Okay. How, if you wanted to get him better, who would you bring out on the field?
The best player I can find.
Get some professional or college players.
Right.
Guys who are going to beat him up. He will learn more in that half hour than he'll learn any other way. My kids, if my daughter is going to get better at tennis, she has to play against somebody better than she is.
Yeah.
That means she's going to lose.
Right.
But in losing, she improves.
Yeah.
Okay? It doesn't matter whether it's school, tennis, soccer, music. It doesn't matter what it is. You almost have to engineer
Right.
I don't like to use the word failure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Your son has to get knocked around by college players.
Right.
He'll get better.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, we put him in situations where it's one-on-one. So you have an attacking player coming with the ball, and he has to defend. That's the worst scenario for a keeper because, you know, you only have really one opportunity to get the ball, and so he has to learn to read and understand.
Right.
And
but
so
he's going to lose most of those contests.
Most of those.
But
and then,
that's how he learns.
So we put one-on-one. Sometimes we go 2 against him.
2-on-1.
Sometimes 3 against him.
That's right.
Just because he has to understand how to move.
And what you're doing is you're engineering failure.
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's what we're doing.
And the reality is he had a hard time with that at first. It really upset him. And I had to teach him, hey, you know, you're not supposed to save these.
Right.
You're not supposed. They're supposed to score. The goal is to get you to move and to understand positioning.
Right.
And once he understood that, now he asks for that drill.
Right.
He wants us to do that drill because he knows that that's going to make him better.
Right.
And we need to teach our kids that, whether it's in sports or it's in school or it's in their social relationships, whatever the case may be. We need to teach our kids and put them in those situations to make that happen.
Right. Right.
So
yeah, rather than whining about, my teacher I got an F on this. What am I going to do? I would want my child to come home and say, I got to figure out how to study a little differently.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we want our kids to be saying.
Exactly.
Not coming to us to rescue,
right.
but coming to us with possible solutions to those challenges. Yeah.
Absolutely. Solutions.
But again, it doesn't happen automatically. You have to engineer these things.
Yeah, it has to be solutions focused. So.
Right.
Okay, I think that's it.
Very nice.
Great episode 100, I think.
I think it's an appropriate way to usher in the next 100.
Yes. We have a lot more ideas, a lot more things that we're going to be doing over. I think that we threw out about 10 more ideas this morning.
Right.
So
I think we'll talk additionally about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for listening on iTunes or wherever you may be listening, Google Play Music or wherever you may be listening. Thank you for watching if you're watching us on YouTube.
Right.
Please, if you have the opportunity, write us a review, rate us, share us, subscribe to our channel. All of that.
Ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Contact us with questions or anything. It just increases the awareness that we're here, that we're talking about these things, and hopefully it'll get other people to come in and listen and ask their questions, which helps everybody. So, all right.
Very good. Happy Friday. Happy Labor Day. It's a holiday weekend.
It is.
But most schools and colleges have 5-day weekends this week.
Yeah, because of
since Thursday. So Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
If you're in Florida, stay dry.
That's right. And yeah, that's it.
That's it.
I think that's it.
Okay.
All right. So until next time, I'm Dr. Berney.
I'm Dr. Richard.
Have a terrific weekend. Have a terrific day. Stay happy. Stay healthy. And forget to be afraid.